The funny thing about bipolar disorder and other mental illnesses is that by stigmatizing the ill, we're throwing away a treasure trove of useful insights into treatment of the illness. This is my conversation with Rabbi Alfredo Borodowski. What if the truth came in a gel cap and we could just pop it in our mouths and forget about it? Well, it doesn't, and we can't. But we can laugh in the face of reality while plotting our survival. Welcome to the Truth Tastes Funny podcast. I am your host, Hersh, and if my guests can handle the truth, so can you. Open wide, folks. Here it comes. My guest today is Rabbi Alfredo Borodowski. He's known in some circles as the bipolar rabbi. He has quite a story to tell about how he turned his bipolar disorder and a lot of the accompanying difficulties into what he describes as positive psychology. Welcome, Rabbi, to the show.
Hi, Hersh. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you. Thank you. Thank you. So when you talk about positive psychology, that gives us a really good sense of where the story goes. But why don't you tell us where your difficulties and your struggles with bipolar disorder began?
Hersh, some people can actually tell you the exact moment when their life basically changed 180 degrees. That was my case on June 2013, actually June 19th, approximately at 10 in the morning in the town of Mamaroneck. I was handcuffed, thrown into a patrol car, and arrested. For the prior 2 months, I've been driving around New York highways and stopping people, actually not stopping, telling them how to drive, directing traffic. If somebody was texting, I would say stop texting. And what happened is that a congregant of mine, a retired policeman, had given me as a present a kind of replica of his shield, for friends and families. Then I was manic at that point, gray mania. I wasn't diagnosed at that point. I went to a psychiatrist. I lied to the psychiatrist. I told him that I was depressed. I was given an antidepressant. Then I was manic, taking the wrong medication, and with a police shield. And all that came together into 2 months of telling people how to drive. Doesn't matter if I didn't buy a uniform, doesn't matter if I didn't touch anybody, doesn't matter if I didn't stop anybody. The fact is that under the law, I impersonated a police officer.
Yeah.
Okay? And then I was arrested. I was arrested in 4 different counties. I was hospitalized. I was diagnosed bipolar. I was fired from my job 2 weeks later. And I became on the press the road rage rabbi.
Okay.
And the press, given that I was a rabbi, had a circus out of it. I was on the front page of newspapers in Ireland and Japan as the road rage rabbi. Then my life, Hersh, in 20 days, basically, I became a different person and a terrible personality. And I had to deal with 8 months of depression and 8 months of going through the courts. The head of the police union in Westchester, where I lived, was very clear that they were going to make an exemplar out of me. Then I had basically all the police union trying to make an exemplar. It was a disaster that ended up in a blessing, as I will share with your audience, a little bit of a cliffhanger. But it was a disaster. My life was thrown into chaos basically in 20 days.
So in many ways, it was the media spin that made a combination of the media spin calling you the road rage rabbi, which it wasn't a road rage incident while it was manic. It was not it doesn't sound like it was road rage. It didn't have anything to do with your being a rabbi. And furthermore, the police had decided they were going to make an example out of you. Tell me a little bit about your position before that day. You were living in Mamaroneck.
I was a rabbi of a congregation, and actually, I must say that the congregation stood by me. Congregation Sulam Yaakov, the congregation I founded with a wonderful group of people. They know me. They know that wasn't Alfredo. That wasn't the Rabbi Alfredo they knew. They gave me the benefit of the doubt, and they kept me as a rabbi. And I tell you, they saved my life.
Wow.
They saved my life. The love of community, the embracing of community, the trust of community, the forgiveness also, because I had done something wrong. Okay, I don't make excuses. I violated the law. I did wrong. It's inexcusable. It can be explained because I was manic and wrongly medicated, but by the same token, I must take responsibility for my actions. And my community embraced me. I continue being the rabbi until recently, when the congregation decided to dissolve. Then they kept me going with my family. I was the executive director of a very prestigious adult education program, which I will not mention because I think that to be fired under those circumstances doesn't shed much light on that institution, and I decided myself not to bring dirt and not to capitalize by shaming the behavior of an institution. But I was fired because of the press. I was not given the benefit of the doubt. I was not given time to explain myself. That's fine. I dealt with it. It was terrible. By the way, when I was fired, a week later I was hospitalized again. That firing actually triggered panic and darkness in me, like I was useless, a footnote in the world, that I was not wanted anymore by anybody, that my life has finished and ended. And I was hospitalized a second time. Then I had big losses, but I have big love. And that's what you're going to find, by the way, in situations like this, Hersh. You're going to find a mixture, okay? And you have to persevere, because there is love and there is darkness. And you have to be hopeful.
Yeah. So when you first were medicated, when you first went to the doctor and you said it was depression, were you aware that it was something else, or you just you hadn't been diagnosed yet properly?
I didn't know I was bipolar. That happened after the arrest, when I was hospitalized. Unfortunately, I learned about my condition through a crisis, which happens many times. People go undiagnosed for a long period until they crash. And I would say to those who are listening that try to prevent getting to a diagnosis through a crisis. If your friends and family tell you go to a psychiatrist and that something is wrong, that something is off, to the best of your abilities, listen. Because I tell you, mania, one of the things that mania does to you, it gives you a sense of invincibility or grandeur. Okay.
Yes.
You have endless energy. You can conquer the world. Then after the psychiatrist gave me the antidepressant and I went back, he said to me, Alfredo, I don't like the way you're reacting to it. Something is wrong with you. He saw it, of course. But you know what they did? I never went back, because he said, this guy is going to take away my mania. I want my mania. I want the creativity. I want the power. I want the endless energy. And I didn't go back. And he called me numerous times. Alfredo, come back. What's happening to you? I never went back because I suspected that he was going to take away the medication. He was going to take my gift, the gift of mania. Then I disappear. Mania is seductive. Okay? It's addictive. I slept 4 hours. I was writing 3 books at the same time. I have endless energy. Okay, then I didn't want to give that away.
Right. So you went from feeling not right to feeling empowered and invincible, and then you had this incident you know?
It was a roller coaster, a roller coaster. I had moments of mania and moments of depression. Basically, bipolar, you know, that we usually go from one mood state to another mood state, usually the
Right.
opposite. Then I wasn't a roller coaster. I was, you know, in general, my bipolar is more towards the mania than the depression. Then I have moments of depression, but I have mania is my usual state. I was depressed after I was arrested because I lost my job, I lost my name, I was in court cases, you know, running from court to court. Then, you know, I think anybody would be depressed on a situation like that.
Sure.
In my case was, you know, the depression that came from the outside and depression I had inside from my bipolar. It came together as a perfect storm. But you know, after since 2013, I have already learned the pattern of my mania. There are months of the year, Hersh, where I have more mania than other months. For example, May, June, July are my prime time for manic. When the sun comes up and, you know, and there is the summer and the flowers and the long days and the energy and the jogging and the, you know, that's when my mania, comes with full force. Then one thing I tell people with bipolar is keep a diary. Keep a diary
Yeah.
of states. And I tell you, not everybody, but I think that many will find a pattern. And once you find a pattern, you can create all the safeguards that will protect you from it.
Yeah. The pattern is interesting because you would think that with better weather would come a uplift, but I guess mania is a form of uplift in a way.
You know, it's a mood disorder. It had to do with mood regulation. There are people who have rapid bipolar changes. They go from mood to another mood in very, very short cycles. Then they may be upbeat, and 10 minutes later maybe it's sad and depressed. Okay, then you know that's rapid bipolar. In my case, it's not rapid. Okay, I have long periods of mania, and then I have short periods of depression. It's for me cyclical. As I mentioned, I know, you know, during the winter when you have darkness and the days are short and it's very cold, I have a couple of weeks of adaptation to the winter. Many people suffer from that, by the way.
Yes, yeah.
The winter blues. I have that. It has to in many ways with my bipolar. Then I go into some kind of depressive state for a few weeks, but I know it already. Then I can prepare myself. As I mentioned, you know, you cannot avoid it, but you can basically reduce its effects. During the summer, I was arrested during the summer. Remember that I impersonated a police officer and was arrested in June. I know what May comes. I get a burst of energy, tremendous burst of energy. It's not just being energetic like other people get energized in the summer. This is more. During mania, I tell you, you sleep few hours, you have endless energy, you can conquer the world. Nobody is stronger than you. In my case, also comes with lack of judgment. Okay, my judgment is reduced. Okay, then you have here lack of judgment and grandeur. That's a bad combination. To feel that you are invincible, and at the same time you have endless energy. Then you know that's a dangerous. But you know, people who are mentally ill are usually not dangerous to others. That's a myth. You know who is the first victim of mentally ill? The person himself or herself. The first victim of mental illness is the person who has a mental illness. By spending all their money, by losing their job, by ruining relationships. Okay, then we are our worst enemies. Okay, mental illness is not the problem of humanity. Okay, we are not all loose cannons that go around the world shooting people. Okay, we are not. Okay, and we should be. Society should stop making us a scapegoat.
Yeah.
Okay, for their own ailments. Okay, then we are the first victims. Okay, there is more suicide, okay, among people with bipolar is exponentially more frequent than people who are not. It's very important that the person with bipolar, any mental illness, has a support group, okay, caregivers, professional support, goes to the gym, eats well, take medication, small things. But when you put them together as a symphony of wellness, it begins really organizing your life and protecting you.
So is this something that, how did you come to control it, understand it, start to treat it? What happened following all of the legal issues and the media issues? How did those resolve?
Well, yeah, I began going to the psychiatrist diligently. I began taking my medications. I began going weekly to a therapist. For me, exercising is vital. Then I go frequently to the gym. You mentioned positive psychology. You know, positive psychology is a psychology. It was basically founded 20 years ago by Martin Seligman, who was the head of the Association of American Psychology. And it's a kind of psychology that instead of dwelling and focusing on trauma, is the psychology that studies what are the strengths you have. Okay, that every person has strengths and relies upon what is flourishing, what is strength, what is working. Psychology has been focusing on what's wrong. And he said, wait a minute, there is a full aspect of the human being, that is what is working, what is the potential of the person. They brought sociologists, anthropologists, philosophers to work together to find the strength of people. And they came up with 24 strengths that are found in most cultures across time and geography. And I took a VIA, which is the Values in Action, which is an instrument that maps your strength. Okay, and anybody can go to the VIA website, VIA, I think it's, VIAinstitute.org or .com, and take the VIA instrument free of charge.
Okay.
And we'll give you 24 strengths. And my first 5, which are the main ones, are creativity, curiosity, love of learning, perseverance, and bravery. Then I was depressed on a couch. I went to my desk and I would look at my files and I saw my VIA results that I had taken a few years earlier. And I look at my 5 results and I said, oh my God, those are my strengths. I have forgotten my strengths. And immediately, what should I do with it? And I enrolled myself on social work school. And I went back to school.
Oh.
Okay, and I was over 50. I was manic, I was depressed, but I went back to school. And I fought against, that brought life to me and purpose to me. And I wanted to be like the social workers who had helped me so much.
Yeah.
They were instrumental in my recovery when I was in the hospital, when I needed advice. Then I said, I want to be like them. At Hersh, I went back to school. And through positive psychology, which is what I do now when I do coaching, all my coaching today, what I do with people, all my coaching is based on the strength of people. 2/3 of people, studies show that 2/3 of people do not know their own strengths.
That makes sense because I think it takes a long time for us to process whether it's judgment or external, criticism, regulation, whatever it might be, and we are very quick to realize we're wrong or damaged or bad, but we're not as quick to recognize the positive.
One of the top psychologists, like Barbara Fredrickson, who studied specifically negativity, and Robert Emmons, who studied gratitude, they both discovered that for each negativity, you need 3 positivities to equalize.
Okay.
The negative is 3 times as powerful as the positive. Then for each negativity, you need 3 gratitudes to equalize. If you want to flourish, you need for each negativity between 4 and 5 positivities, then we need to understand that to be grateful and to be flourish in life demands work. It's not the natural way we are. Because since we were in the prehistoric times and people went out of the cave to hunt, the chances of hunting anybody were less than being hunted by an animal.
Yeah.
Then we developed a defense mechanism by which we were always defensive, we were always under attack, and we were only in a protective state rather than expecting the best. And we're wired that way. We are wired to expect the worst. And we have to work hard to move into the positive. Positive psychology is the branch of psychology that helps you overcome that negativity and move into your strengths.
Now, as far as mania goes, there was a book that I read, The Hypermanic Edge, it's called. And essentially the notion is that a lot of the people who achieve great things have manic personalities and suffer from mania in some way. And that's what gives them the confidence to go against the grain, to tread, to break new ground. But at the same time, typically they will reach a point where they're unreasonable, where they're grandiose, where their thinking and judgment is compromised. And that's what they have to watch out for, because they will stop listening to anyone, even their own better judgment. But because our natures are, as you described it, we're predisposed to fear negativity and worse outcomes, it takes somebody like that to break through certain things and accomplish. So how do we find the balance between confidence and positivity and mania and self-destruction?
Well, you can drive a car at 100 or 200 miles an hour and get faster than anybody else, but likely you're going to crash.
Yeah.
Then you have to ask the question of what is better, a regular, disciplined, controlled environment, or a highly creative environment where likely you're going to end up suffering. Then, when I work people with and by the way, the issue of creativity and mental illness is not on everybody. Then the balance sheet of this is negative. There are more people whose lives are ruined or is a challenge, not ruined, but it's a tremendous challenge out of mental illness than they became geniuses and create electric cars. Okay, then I don't want to take a few geniuses who are bipolar or mentally ill as the paradigm of all of the life of people with mental illness, because that's not the case. The life of mental illness is not a life in general of advantage. It's a life of challenge. Now, what I can tell you is that people with mental illness know about resilience, about hope, about darkness, about perseverance, about courage, about wholeness, acceptance, more than the average person. What happened is that we have not created the channels by which people with mental illness have articulated the wisdom to the world. That the wisdom of mental illness is not in the atypical kind of genius, but the wisdom of mental illness is on the usual experiences of people with mental illness. Because I've been hospitalized 5 times. Thankfully for short durations. 1 week, 10 days. I call it my tune-up, in the same way that you bring a car to the garage.
Yeah.
Changing oil, okay? I get my tune-ups. But you know how much I have to say about freedom, about compassion, about taking care of each other, that happens within the 4 walls of a psychiatric ward? Why there are not books about the lesson and wisdom of the psychiatric ward, which I know about? That is a bestseller. Can you imagine if we would bring people who have been in psychiatric ward and tell and allow them and create an environment and channel by which they share the stories with the world? The amount of wisdom that is being wasted because people with mental illness have been sold the idea that they are defective and they have nothing to say. And in my view, we are sitting on endless wisdom. Not wisdom that is because we are geniuses. Wisdom because we have gone through experiences that have demanded from us to go to places where other people don't. And that's, by the way, my next book is called The Wisdom of Mental Illness. Finding Strength in Your Struggles. And it's 14 chapters. One chapter is shame, another is self-esteem, acceptance, wholeness, prayer, diagnosis. And each chapter, Hersh, has 3 links. And the reader clicks the link and is sent to a website, dedicated website, where the reader writes his own or her own experiences. Then I am not writing the book. We are writing the book. And the intention of the book is to create a community of wisdom of people with mental illness. And then I will collect all that material. And then we are going to publish it on a next book, which is more important than my book. My book is a vehicle. The next book is The Wisdom of Mental Illness, to be shared with the world, and then transition from victimhood to being agents of our own destiny.
That's a beautiful concept. I was going to ask you what the mechanism is for getting the stories out. Obviously, we're in an age where I talk about this all the time on the show, mental health having to be normalized. That's one of the reasons I want to talk to more and more people who go through it. We're all struggling at one point or another. We all struggle with something. On the one hand, people who fail in a business venture can look at it and say, I learned something, here's what I learned, and someone might offer them some respect and some dignity as a result. With mental illness, it's exactly as you described. There's a sense of defectiveness, of imperfection, which is some kind of crime. Compassion is one side. It's from a selfish point of view as human beings to be able to learn something from someone who went through a difficult experience. Let's talk a little bit about the root causes, whatever we know of bipolar disorder.
Look, we are in the infancy of learning how the brain works. I think that 100 years from now, we're going to look back and say, wow, we really did know, we knew so little. Clearly there is neuroscience and genetics, and we are making tremendous headways on these issues, but we are very early. How do you are hospitalized, and this is what you see. People are given a new drug, and the drug takes like 3-4 days to begin working. And then the psychiatrist asks the person, is it working?
Right.
Okay, and it's not working. Okay, let's try more. Let's try less. Let's try this other drug. We are still in the trial and error. Basically, there is nothing here in which we can determine what is the exact drug and the exact amount for this particular person. Imagine you will go to your doctor for heart disease, and they tell you, okay, there are these 50 different pills I can give you. For the next 3 months, I'm going to be giving you 20 of them. Let's see which one works.
Yeah.
Okay? And by the way, it may really have terrible side effects. But don't take me wrong. I take medication every day, and the medication has been instrumental in my well-being. And without it, I would be in really terrible shape. But it took time. It took trial and error. I had shifted many medications, but I didn't give up. Then what I will tell people listening, I feel that medication is good. It has been good for me, but you have to have patience. We are now our knowledge now does not allow for knowing exactly which drug you may need at the beginning. Trust your psychiatrist, trust yourself. It's a process. Okay, then we are early. Of course, we are early in the process of knowing how the brain works, but I am hopeful. I see the advances. Let me also say something, referring to something you said before. I am in the business of mental health. What do I mean by the business? I am not doing my work because I want compassion from others. And I am not doing my work because I want empathy from others. I want the mentally ill to package the knowledge and sell it to the world. I want the mentally ill to be entrepreneurial. I don't see why a corporation has to hire somebody who climbed the Himalayas and pay $20,000 to give a talk on motivation, and not to hire somebody who is schizophrenic and has made himself CEO of a company or
Right.
open his own business. Okay? Or what happened that we with mental illness has not yet bought into our own strength. We are looking at ourselves like second-class citizens. We have to shift a paradigm about how we see ourselves. And that our knowledge and experience is marketable and valuable. And by the way, once we market our experience and knowledge, I believe that stigma is going to be reduced. Stigma is not
Yeah.
going to diminish. Stigma is not going to diminish because we beg compassion. Stigma is going to diminish because we bring to the world our added value and contribution. And because we take our place as players around the table of proactive wisdom. Then I am not begging for anything. I am not knocking the doors of politicians. I let that be done by great foundations who do that. I am on the business, and I use the word business purposely, of packaging the knowledge of the mentally ill to advance their life in the market of ideas.
Excellent. Because it's what I envision is that it's about commanding respect. It's not asking for consideration or asking for understanding. It's commanding respect. Say it's like anyone who achieves something that is respected empirically, by extension, gets that respect. Oh well, now people realize that they have something to offer. Now people realize they're intelligent. You know, how long ago was the incident, what we would call the pivotal incident? How many years ago?
By the way, let me tell you that my website, on the top of the website, the first thing you read is From Stigma to Dignity.
Ah, okay.
Okay, From Stigma to Dignity. Well, I was arrested on June 19th, 2013.
Okay. So, almost a decade ago. And so now what is your typical engagement? What are you doing now on a day-to-day basis? You're working on the book.
Clearly I have dedicated my life to the work of mental illness and fostering the wisdom of mental illness. I do believe that there is a particular wisdom we have through our experience, which is very unique. Okay? Who knows better than us what is to feel alienated from the human condition? Who knows better than us what is to feel that you're losing yourself and you rescue yourself? And the sense of what is self. What is self? Who knows better than us who were in mental institutions the fear of uncertainty and can write better than us about uncertainty and how to deal with uncertainty? Who knows better than us resilience and perseverance? And I don't believe that, yes, all that knowledge has been translated through stories, through narratives, through quotes, spiritual wisdom. Then what I do is I go around the world where they let me and I talk. I give, I think, speeches, talks, lessons about creating a community of mental health wisdom. I have seminars. I publish a weekly newsletter. Then I write very, like to give an example. My last newsletter was called A Prayer for Depression, where I explain how prayer can help somebody during depression. The newsletter a week ago was about self-sabotaging. I have sometimes blogs on positive psychology and how we can help you. I have lessons we learn on the psychiatric world. Then I publish a blog every week, a newsletter, very well read. I am so grateful that I am in touch with so many people. Many of those people contact me individually for advice. I serve at many think tanks where we are working together with interfaith, faith communities to bring awareness about mental illness and mental health to communities. Then I keep myself busy and I do many things. I am active in social media. I have my Facebook, I have my Instagram, I have my LinkedIn, constantly publishing quality. I try to publish quality. I'm not buying into fame and social media and you like my picture,
Right.
I like your picture. No, I sit down and write blogs. Everything I do is based on science and evidence. I constantly reading the latest research. I spend many hours studying what's going on and the latest developments, and I try to bridge the gap between the spiritual and the scientific.
So for on that front, how has your background as a rabbi, your studies in religion, and liturgical sources, how has all of that kind of melded and shaped your current work?
Well, I am an ordained rabbi. I have 30 years of congregational work, 30 years of being spiritual leader on the trenches of faith. I have also a PhD in philosophy. Then I am well versed in different philosophical traditions and spirituality. And I have a certification on personality type and positive psychology. Then I bring that eclectic background. Then the questions I ask, they are not questions about, you look at the chapter of my book, acceptance, wholeness, shame, normal, abnormal, diagnosis, prayer. These are all building blocks of what I call the existential dilemmas of the mental illness condition. Then I look at the totality of the person. I work with the person as a totality, with their strengths. You know, I am not into diagnosis so much. I'm more into the existential questions of the person.
Right.
And always the guiding principle for me, the questions I ask the person when I work with them, what are the strengths that you have learned from the experience? How can you use those strengths to leverage your life? And what wisdom have you acquired from your pain or from your happiness? But, you know, no experience with mental illness should go without the exercise of taking wisdom out of it. Then that's my approach. And, you know, I'm a rabbi, but I am working here as a spiritual leader. You know, I am not working for the Jewish people. As a bipolar rabbi, I left the synagogue into the world in general. Okay? I don't work with ideology, with doctrine, with dogma. I work at the spiritual level, trying to bring my wisdom to everybody, anybody, because we are united in mental illness beyond particular religions. The learning is a learning that belongs to everybody who goes through the experience.
I was raised in a modern Orthodox Jewish background where religion played a very, very central role in education. And at some point you have to, I feel you have to separate that stuff from what it means to be human.
Everything I do is rooted in who I am, okay? And Judaism is an important part of me, and especially Judaism, which is a religion that doesn't believe that we are sinful by nature, okay, as you know, okay?
Yeah.
We wake up every day, the first blessing we say is, thank you, God, for having restored within me a pure soul. Then we don't believe that we were born in sin. We have a very positive view of the world. We believe that life is that we have an opportunity. We begin every day in purity. Okay, then it's a super optimistic religion. It's a religion that is in many ways about action, okay, mitzvot, doing things, being active. I think that that's very good for mental illness, to move from negative thought into activity, okay. Then Judaism has a tremendous, the great sage Hillel, one of the greatest sages of Judaism, says, do not remove yourself from community. Okay, then the communal is essential to Judaism. And I have read so many studies by scientists from the Royal Academy of Psychiatry, for example, in Britain, in which community is essential for the well-being of a person. Because people who have mental illness are isolated, and they suffer tremendously of loneliness. Then community is essential. Then yes, I am a universalist in terms that I work with anybody, but also I bring a message of Judaism positive views. Then I keep a balance. Judaism, for example, in general, doesn't believe that suffering redeems you.
Right.
That's not a Jewish mainstream position, that we welcome suffering in order to learn and be redeemed. No, we say, the hell with suffering. We don't want suffering.
Right.
Now, if we suffer, because everybody will suffer, okay, let's make lemonade out of it. But the making of the lemonade is a byproduct of a suffering that we cannot avoid. We don't seek suffering, and we don't see a value in itself. Okay, then yes, then I do have a Jewish background that I bring to the table, but but it's never judgmental. I try to be eclectic, to be universalist. But yes, I will tell somebody I'm working with, let's dwell on the strengths you have. Suffering, I acknowledge your suffering, okay? I acknowledge suffering, let's make strength out of it. But I'm not going now to make suffering as a virtue, because that's not who I am.
Right. So now for our audience, maybe out there, as we look at certain things that happen in the world, is there a piece of advice that you can share to maintain a positive psychology toward the world?
Well, first of all, I would say that the main work you must do is the work of the self. Okay, the journey begins with perfecting the self, to being honest with the self. Okay, and you cannot maximize your effect in the world, your positive effect, without knowing your strengths. Once you find your strength, you immediately become goal-oriented. And the discussion shifts from passivity into agency. Okay, then when I teach a seminar, you always end the seminar with goals and strategies. It's not theoretical. Okay, we're going to have a direct effect in your life. Then I do different things. All of them are aimed towards finding wisdom in your journey. Then I am not, and this is very interesting, I am not on the business of macro. You're not going to see me working on changing big things. There are people who are experts on that. My job is more to help individuals to find a way. I am not an activist of big endeavors. My interest is your life, as many lives as possible. And if I can change one life, two lives, that's for me okay. Because those lives we are going to transform and teach them strength, they are going to go and transform the world.
Yeah. And the effect is
that's my commitment.
It's a chain reaction that you set into place. A healthy individual as well, or a healthier individual, their relationships become healthier, their children, their grandchildren, everyone's future becomes more positive. So even a single individual that you help has a bigger impact than we really know. We don't really know.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, Rabbi Borodowski. Where were you? Where are you from originally? By the way, where were you born?
Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Yes.
I grew up there until the age of 20. Then I moved here to the States. I've been here for, I will not tell you how many years, because but many decades. I'm an American citizen. I became American. I am married to my wife, Shira, who is also rabbi. We met in Jerusalem.
Oh, lovely
place, actually. But I am very active, by the way, in this Spanish-speaking context. For example, every Tuesday I teach a class on positive psychology and ancient Jewish wisdom to 30 students from Spain to Ecuador to Colombia, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, in Spanish. And I am going now in October for a full month to Argentina to teach positive psychology and rabbinic leadership to over 100 rabbis in South America to make sure that positive psychology is included in religious communities.
That's wonderful. Well, see, your impact is more broad and more profound than you may even appreciate. So thank you so much for coming on. This has been an honor and certainly
Then I want everybody listening, be strong. You have strengths, okay? Sometimes you don't know it. But just to finish, a study shows that by knowing your strength, not by using them, by knowing your strength, you are 9 times more prone to succeed.
Thanks so much for tuning into Truth Tastes Funny. If you enjoyed the experience, please leave a 5-star review and share this podcast with your friends.